Hello, welcome to our next Workplace Ninjas Netherlands live Ask Us Anything. My name is Frans Oudendorp and I'm hosting this session together with Ronny de Jong. So first, housekeeping. This is a live recording and will be available on YouTube afterwards. When it's available, we will announce that through our social channels. If you have questions on this topic, feel free to ask the questions in the chat or go off mute and ask your questions. So don't hesitate and join the conversation. So Ronny, what do we have today? I see Dan in the room. So what topic do we cover?
Thanks, Frans, and thank you everyone for joining and for listening this episode. Today we have an interesting topic that's all about security management, or perhaps we should say security configuration management. It's alongside with the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. It's also known as MDE-attach. And well, these days organizations need to react faster and required to be more effective in their response to cyber attacks. And as they're becoming more and more frequent and sophisticated, and well, traditional silos or fragmented IT landscape with multiple point solutions are not helping to do so. So therefore we invited Dan Levy. He's program manager of the Microsoft 365 security team, to tell us everything about security management. So have a warm welcome, Dan. Great to have you. And before we continue, perhaps good to have a brief introduction of yourself.
Yeah, that would be great. Ronny, Frans, thanks so much for having me, and thanks to everybody for joining. So as you mentioned, my name is Dan Levy. I've been working in the cybersecurity field for over 10 years now. Previously, I was a consultant for one of the big consulting firms, specifically in cybersecurity. I joined Microsoft a year ago, specifically the MDE team, or M365D, and I'm focused on security configuration management. And this is basically the flagship feature that the team has been working on for nearly over nearly 2 years now. And that's what we're going to be presenting, walking you through. And the feature we're talking about today, as you mentioned, MDE settings management, is something that is due to hit GA in the upcoming weeks. At least that's the plan. So we're looking really forward to this, and we already have hundreds of customers using the feature in preview mode, and so we're really looking forward to this. And so I'm looking forward to presenting you all the edge cases and how this is going to solve our customers' problems.
That's awesome, Dan. Almost next time we should plan this on the GA date, so we have the scoop, but that's for another time.
I'll be too busy on GA dates. You won't be able to have me.
No. I can imagine that. Hey, great. Thanks for the introduction and the brief background on yours. Before we go into the matter, we always kickstarting this with some statements, whether it's true or false. And therefore I've prepared a few ones. And the first one is the right to exist will lapse for GPOs, SCCM, or other third-party management solutions with settings management by MDE.
So answering this by a yes or a no, it's in general, they don't start with the trick question at the beginning, you know. But let me put it this way: it's going to change. It's not going to lapse. There are some use cases and some situations where a GPO is a must-have. However, we at Microsoft are aware that we're expanding the capabilities, and with this expansion can come also an expansion in the level of complexity. And so every single time we expand capabilities, including with what we're going to talk about today, we're also taking into consideration how and where we can consolidate or simplify. Part of the story here is around endpoint management. And as you know, today there's tools such as Intune, or what used to be referred to as Intune, and what used to be referred to as SCCM, which are currently under this one umbrella feature called MEM, Microsoft Endpoint Manager. And so this is like a very use case example to show you how we're trying to consolidate also as we are expanding other features. So I wouldn't say that these tools will lapse or will stop being in use, but the landscape is going to change, and hopefully it'll be easier to manage at larger scales.
Yeah, that's actually the tricky behind it. It's trying to virtualize or being more efficient in managing our landscape and integrating the solutions. That's indeed where we're heading to. But that's not only limited to technology, I would say, and that's the next statement. Security management helps organizations to transform by integrating individual silos. And then with silos, I mean the IT organizations in companies.
Okay, great point. I remember from my first days at Microsoft that joining this team was specifically in order to help solve this issue, the issue of, we can call them silos or friction between IT and security teams. This is really like one of the key aspects that we at Microsoft are in a privileged position to solve, simply because we are present both on the security and in the IT landscape. And so as you'll see with the feature today, I won't give you too many spoilers too early, but basically we're really trying to bridge the gaps or the frictions that can occur between these two critical teams inside the enterprise. And you'll see, like we're not just integrating tools between API calls and another API call there. We're really trying to make the tools and their experience converge so that IT admins keep on using the same tools and get the same level of accuracy and results that they want. And security teams can similarly use their tools that they are familiar with and have a fluid experience with those. And what we're trying to do is, in case there are edge cases or edge scenarios where IT teams need access to the security tools or vice versa, we can fine-tune this and grant access specifically to the areas where the security team needs to get inside an IT tool. And you'll see this today in our presentation.
Okay, well, that sounds cool. Yeah, that's what I meant. It's with many organizations, and they're trying to keep their kingdom, for example, and that's not how you solve the puzzle of all the attacks we are facing, all the threats we are facing, and we need to work together. And that's not only from a technology to merge all these solutions, but also from an organization's perspective. But that's also, that will take some time, that also these departments are working together, and perhaps IT or the solutions we are talking about today will support them in doing so, and they will become successful. So yeah, well, great. Yeah, that was also one other tricky one with security management. We're introducing just another interface. That's actually what you explained. It's not just extra APIs and giving another interface.
Right. It's not another interface. It's more use cases. I want to put it that way. It's like we're giving you like a Swiss Army knife that can solve many different use cases. Inside, like taking into consideration the complexity of IT environments and setups and what's going on in large enterprises, and without impacting negatively on the experience from IT teams or the security teams. And so it's really like a Swiss Army knife that you're going to be able to use in different use cases. And although it might look like, oh, a new management channel, you'll see today it's not just a new management, it is a new management channel, but it also plugs in with other tools, so that from the experience perspective, it's really like one experience between this management channel and MEM, for instance, which is what we're going to show you today.
Okay. Yeah, so with the statement left, I think it's a great time to have some more insights. Perhaps you can show us by showing some slides or some demo about the solution we are talking about today. So we can proceed afterwards with the questions from the people in the call, or the questions we prepared.
Absolutely. So let me start sharing. And I'll start directly, since I heard that everybody's a ninja here on the call. I'll start directly with the overall start. I won't go into the broad pitch. I'll go directly into the technical aspects and what we're talking about. Today, an enterprise that is using Microsoft Defender for Endpoint has an experience where MEM, Microsoft Endpoint Manager, serves as the central pane of glass to manage security settings and policies on devices. In order to do that, of course, MEM used to be in the past Intune, MDM, and that channel is used to manage security settings on the devices that we're familiar with, cross-platform, etc. In addition, with time, as I mentioned before, we started to consolidate some of these tools. What used to be referred to as SCCM, currently called Configuration Manager, was integrated, or at least if an enterprise decides to integrate SCCM with MEM, there's the SCCM tenant attach scenario, which enables to connect the tools together so that IT admins can have an experience where they can set policies in MEM, and then the policies will be pushed to the device via SCCM. And so basically, these are like the use cases, the broader use cases. This is what we have today per OS platforms and for all these cases. What we're doing now today is we're introducing a new management platform, or a new management channel, which relies not on a new agent, but on an agent that we hope is already in your network, and that is Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. And so what happens is, let me see now if this is going to move. There we go. And so the new management channel is basically a channel where the EDR agent on your device, so Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, the agent on the device, will probe the device to verify if the device already has a management channel. And if the device does not have a management channel, in other words, if it is unmanaged, the MDE agent itself will kick in a flow, which we refer to as MDE Security Configuration Management, which will enable the device to be brought into the management realm in the enterprise. And this is something that we're expecting to do only for Defender settings, so only for security settings. We're expecting this to be cross-plat. We're currently, as I mentioned, GAing with Windows Server, Windows 10, Windows 11. I can go also into the details from 2012 R2 for servers from 2012 R2 up, and Windows 10 and Windows 11 devices. That's what's going to be coming out very soon. And then in the upcoming months, we'll be expanding to Linux and Mac OS as well. And so the idea is to be able to manage Defender settings on these devices. Again, as I mentioned, Swiss Army knife, the idea is first to solve the use case of devices that are in your network. They have the MDE agent on them, but they're currently unmanaged. And so in this use case, the flow will kick in and bring the device into management. So the most important use case of MDE security configuration management is specifically this use case. Device is unmanaged, it's in your network, it's the preferred attack vector for attackers. And we know that from their tools, tactics, and procedures, they specifically target those devices because they're available and they're unmanaged and they don't have policies and they don't have security settings hardened enough or updated soon enough, often enough. And so we're going to bring protection or bring those devices specifically into the management realm. This being, the experience for the IT admin or the security team remains the same. In other words, as long as the feature is set up correctly, every single time a new device gets detected and that gets onboarded via this flow or gets enrolled into MEM via this flow, the security admin does not need to go and manually tag every single time a new policy to a new device. Everything is automated, and I'll show you in a bit also how this works. But basically, to show you the flow, the status is that, oops, sorry for that. The status starts with a device in your network which has MDE agent on it, but the device is not managed. So it's already onboarded to MDE, it's not managed yet. And so what happens is MDE probes the device, identifies that the device is unmanaged, And as you know, both in MEM, the security policy settings experience goes through grouping and the identity pane, which is itself based on Azure Active Directory. And so the moment the MDE security configuration management flow kicks in, what happens is MDE will probe AAD for an identity. And since the device is unmanaged, the device does not have an AAD identity. MDE will automatically, without any user interference or interaction, register the device to AAD, create an identity for the device in AAD. It'll enroll the device to AAD. And once that device is enrolled to AAD, again, security admins or IT admins that are managing AAD can basically create a dynamic group inside AAD based on a system label that MDE puts on the device. And that way, the device will automatically, any device that gets onboarded to MDE that isn't managed, it will automatically get onboarded, go into an AAD device group. And the reason for that is that, as we know, in Microsoft Endpoint Manager, the experience to target a policy on a device relies on the device being basically existing in the identity plane and being in an AAD group. And so all that needs to be done is the first time setup, where the IT and security folks will get together, create the dynamic AAD group based on the system label, and then the security team can create a security policy based on the profiles that exist in MEM and target that policy on that AAD group. And that way, we have a flow where devices that are currently unmanaged will basically become managed. The experience will be consolidated to the MEM portal. It doesn't matter if the device is managed by MDE or by SCCM or by MDM or anything. Basically, the policy inside MEM will be the same policy, and it will be pushed to the device via this channel. So basically what we're doing is, yes, we're introducing a new channel. However, this new channel solves very specific use cases. And the use case is unmanaged devices or platforms that currently don't have ideal management experiences, such as macOS, for instance, where we don't have a userless enrollment flow. These are some of the use cases we're looking to solve here. The entire idea is that this is going to be userless. The moment MDE EDR detects that the device is unmanaged, it'll kick in, enroll the device, bring it into management, and within an hour and a half, the policies start arriving on the device. And so this is what we're introducing. And I'll pause here if we have any questions before I move on to a little bit some of the experience part in the portal. And if you have any questions regarding some edge cases here with the feature.
Yeah, if someone has questions, please raise your hand, and then we can address you, and you can join the conversation. Then I have a short question. Aren't you afraid of people get lost in so many options? I think you mentioned already a little bit, but when we have GPO, we have MEM, we have SCCM as management options, and there is a new use case for and not managed devices that we can manage this way. Can we use the same policies? Are there different, do I have to use different portals for different policies for different use cases, or will that also be consolidated?
Great. So yeah, of course we're concerned. We don't want that to be an experience, and we don't want our customers to be confused or to get lost between the tools. So as I showed you today, as you see, like it's really a strategy at Microsoft to consolidate. So that's why SCCM and I mean, this is just one of the examples, right? But that's why SCCM or Configuration Manager and Intune have been brought under the same umbrella. And this is why what we're presenting here today is also going to be under the same umbrella. In other words, if you're creating a policy in MEM, you don't need to create a different policy in MEM for the same settings based on the management channel. You'll create a single time management security policy for all your Windows 10 devices or all your Windows servers, and it doesn't matter which channel is pushing the settings on the device. It's one policy, and it's being sent. The only reason why right now it's not the case is because we're in preview mode, and so customers still need to be in preview mode and know that they're creating, like, based on this preview policy, but basically the goal is really to consolidate. Another way that we're doing this is we're doing this from the UI perspective. Inside MDE, which is something I'll be able to show you right now, we're creating an area inside the MDE portal, which you can see here under configuration management, which is specifically to help provide visibility to the security admins as to what are the management channels on the device or inside their network. So for instance, the first widget that you see here provides basically like the management channel per OS platform. And so you see all your OS platforms listed here. And of course, you'll also be able to see Mac OS, Linux, etc. once they're added. There we go. So we have, as you see, we're expanding also the types of servers and use cases. And so they're all grouped. Not only that, but if you click, for instance, on devices managed by MEM, this will take you to the device inventory and filter the device inventory based on the management channel, which is something we can even go into it right now. This is like a limited version of the device inventory, which is used specifically for configuration management purposes. And you can see you have the device name. And what we've done is we've provided, for instance, this new column here, which basically provides the management channel. And so you see it's already been filtered to all the devices that are currently being managed by MEM. Let me go back to the configuration and baselines. Sorry, configuration management. And the second widget we're releasing also is specifically for devices that are being managed with the solution that we're providing today. So basically we're saying, okay, for all the devices that are currently managed by MDE or receiving their policies via the MDE security configuration management flow, what is their status? And you'll see here, like if the policy is, if there's an error in the enrollment flow, because as I mentioned before, like the flow kicks in the moment a device is unmanaged, a device needs to get registered to AAD and then it receives its policy by MEM. And then automatically the policy arrives on the device. However, in that flow, it can occur that there's some friction or the device doesn't have line of sight to AAD or a MEM policy doesn't make it to the device, etc. There's many use cases. So what we're doing is we really have a supportability flow specifically for devices where the flow didn't succeed. We're basically providing you that information and telling you, okay, this device is receiving its policies via MDE management or via another channel, and we're telling you if there's an error inside that flow. And again, this is specifically for the MDE management side, but you also get it for devices that are managed by MEM. Again, apologies, this is my test tenant, so I don't have devices that are onboarded via MEM. But you also have this for a compliance perspective. And we're really trying to provide this visibility for security admins specifically inside the M365D portal. And as usual, if there is data that is available inside the MEM portal, the security admins can reach the MEM portal and get that information. Why am I saying this? Because right now we just put in the M365D portal a permission where basically a security admin inside the M365D portal can grant specific permissions to some of the team members, specifically to go in MEM and to manage security settings, which are here as you know the defender settings in MEM. And so we're giving really like in the M365D portal, you can grant permissions. I can even show this to you now.
Hey, Dan, meanwhile, I have one question. With the discovery of the endpoints, when they are managed with MDM, we were able to onboard them through MDE by policies. And now with Azure AD or AD, we can do a discovery so that we have also the Windows boxes being part of the MDE management layer. How does that work for Mac OS and for Linux?
Okay, great point.
But
so
please make your thing, your role-based access control finish that.
Yeah, no problem. I just want to show you how inside the M365D portal, as you can see here, you can grant permission specifically to a security admin to go manage the settings or policies inside MEM. And so this is like one of the capabilities that we're building to create this integration where security folks can go specifically to the IT tool called MEM, and specifically there, they're limited to the security settings and managing those. So this is like one of the ideas, which is a level of integration that we're looking to build upon, and also bring some more data from MEM inside the M365D portal. Now, regarding your question, Ronny, everything that I'm presenting here within a few months is going to be available not only for Windows servers and Windows 10, Windows 11 devices, but also for Linux servers and for macOS. In our pipeline, we're starting with Linux, and all the distros of Linux that currently are supported by MDE will have this feature enabled. What this means is that we've partnered basically with our colleagues on the AAD side and on the MEM team, so that from the moment that a device gets onboarded into by MDE, so the agent is on the device, the agent will not just be protecting it as we're expecting from it.
Yeah.
You can also enable this MDE security settings management feature, and including macOS and Linux devices, the devices will be registered inside AAD as a Linux or macOS device. You'll be able to group them in an AAD group, and you'll be able to target policies on those devices in MEM using policies specifically in MEM. And so this is the only area inside MEM where you'll have like a differentiation between policies, because as you know, settings in Linux and macOS world are not exactly the same as they are in the Windows world. So when you'll create an AV policy in MEM, you'll have a drop down at the beginning of the flow. Do you want to create a macOS policy or a Windows policy? And that's like the only differentiation you'll have there. But basically, this entire flow will be supported for cross platforms.
Yeah, then a related question to that one. You have Endpoint Manager where you can do the security configuration. We have Defender for Endpoint where we have an overview. We can do our analyst stuff and so on. Why not doing it the other way around? So doing the configuration for policies and so on, why not integrating that in the Defender portal? So when looking at other vendors, we don't have to do that. But when we do that, we have one solution for firewall configuration, AV config, and also and all that sort of stuff in one environment.
Yeah, great. So let me explain. As I said at the beginning, we're in a privileged position, right? We're Microsoft. We're Microsoft Endpoint Manager. We're also AAD, and we're also M365D. What's going on, what we're seeing in the industry more and more, is specifically this friction that I mentioned at the beginning between what Ronny referred to as silos, or basically different teams in large enterprises. And very often, it's very, very clear from security teams that they want to be able to manage all their security settings inside their EDR console, and they don't want to have to request access to AAD or to another tool. In the same time, IT teams or support teams or whatever, they would like to get one single pane of glass in a unified console or a single pane of glass where they can get all the settings. And by all the settings, they mean all the settings in addition to the Defender settings. And in order to bridge this gap, basically, what we're seeing at some of our competitors is basically a reinforcement of the pain point, which is that we're saying, you're the security team, you can manage all your security settings in the EDR portal. But then the IT team doesn't necessarily understand, or if there's an escalation, or if there's like something that's creating something on a device that won't run, or if you're creating like an ASR rule or something specifically which will prevent something from running on a device, well, because the EDR agent is performing that block and not communicating back to the UEM tool what it's performing, what it's blocking, and for what reasons, the IT teams that are more often, or the support teams that are the most often the ones in like the first line of sight on the call with the customer or on the call with the employee who can't access a folder and they want to be able to access that folder, they're in the dark. And so what we decided to do at Microsoft is basically we decided to say, and we're also doing this aligned with analysts, like industry analysts, what they're telling us is that we need a single pane of glass where we get the full visibility. And then on top of that, we need to build the integrations that work with that. And so in order to not create frictions between the silos we talked about before, at Microsoft, we said, okay, Microsoft Endpoint Manager is the Endpoint Manager. And we're going to create integrations between the Endpoint Manager and the EDR to have this become more and more fluid. We also recognize that we need to integrate more or converge more or bring more features from MEM or more experiences that the security admins, so that the security admins don't need to live with always two tabs open in their browser, but they can open the second tab only in extreme cases, only when they really need to go check what's going on inside Microsoft Endpoint Manager. But most of their experience takes place inside the M365D portal. So that's basically the stance that we're taking there. But that doesn't mean that we don't recognize that there aren't areas where we need to improve, and we're working on those very actively. So that the experience is more and more consolidated from the security admin perspective to the M365D portal.
Yeah, and it's then it's good to see the security role that you showed a few minutes ago from a security person that has the option to do the security policies to enable that, to configure them right away with one security role. So I think from an MSP perspective, that is great to see that in the product.
Yeah, that's a funny part, Frans. You mentioned the MSSP perspective. How does this relate to the MSSP, or how is it supporting those kind of scenarios? And if we're talking about that, then how relate that to, for example, the Lighthouse scenarios with the Microsoft 365 Lighthouse? Do we have also full coverage on this particular functionality, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So the feature is basically enabled already, first of all, for like P1, P2 licenses. We're not discriminating. It's available for everyone. If you're familiar, a few weeks ago, we're starting to roll out also our new solution for what we call the medium businesses, MDB solution, which in itself is already a solution for like the much smaller organizations that don't need the full-blown security settings. And for them, this feature is really baked inside the product. From the moment MD is on the device, immediately the device is enrolled. And I mean, the feature that I'm presenting to you today has, it's really a Swiss Army knife. You can decide to configure this way, you can decide to configure that way, you can play with that. We're already integrated with the MDB experience, for instance, where the feature is always on by default, basically. And any device that is unmanaged, it will automatically start to get managed and receive policies. And we're planning on doing the same with the Lighthouse effort, where this is basically a consistent part of the experience. And for MSSP specifically, we also recognize that very often the complexity of the organizations that they're managing can be a challenge from the setting up and the configuration management side of things. And so the feature, like MDE-attach feature very specifically, the reason why we're creating the system label on the device the moment it's going into AAD is specifically so that dynamic rules can be created inside AAD, where you can say, okay, if a device is named like this and has the system label MDE managed, you can put it in a specific AAD group just for that purpose. And so we're also trying to build that. And I can't give you any spoilers today on the call, but we're also working more of that inside the M365D portal, where you'll be able to create groups and interact more easily in between AAD and M365D. That is also a big part of where we want to create that integration and convergence, so that the security team doesn't need all the time to request permissions to the IT folks for removing one device from one user from a specific group, or one device re-adding them to a different group. We want that to be a much more fluent experience, and so we're also working on that.
Yeah. So actually, what nowadays we do that by tagging and giving them a tag. And that's actually the mechanism to have the automatic assignment, so everything automatically will be populated. There we can expect some more improvements over time, where actually the security and protecting our endpoints is becoming more and more automated way. So actually, this seems to be we are heading to secure by default, I would say.
Absolutely. We call it built-in protection, or that's the type of feature we're working on and right now. But basically, the idea is there's no reason why you would have a device in your network that has an EDR agent on it, but not necessarily receiving policies, or even worse, a device that's completely unmanaged and doesn't even have its EDR on it. So basically, as you know, there's more and more experiences where devices that are currently without the EDR agent get automatically pulled into the EDR experience, and they receive the EDR agent. And this is the second part of that. We can call it the hug, right? On one hand, the device is brought into protection, and on the other hand, it's receiving its policies. So that's what we're trying to do. And at the end of the day, it's really hardening the network and the entire enterprise in general. Because we know that the attackers use those tools and that's how they work. So that's what like their favorite devices are unmanaged devices. I mean, back a few years ago, it was more like the devices are entirely unprotected or not monitored, rogue IT, etc. And now we're focusing more on the next phase, which is devices that are missing policies or missing specific features, or that the attacker can override specific settings. So that's exactly what we're doing here. We're giving more ways for security admins to harden the network and consolidate that.
Yeah, but that's also what we open it at managing the unknown. That's you mentioned it, the network discovery, which is also part of MDE, for example. That's now becoming clear why it's that important that you know what's on your network and discover what's on your network, and based on that you can like the defender for endpoint, like a probe or a scanner to identify those assets. One other thing I noticed, there were some Twitter tweets about some extra option of the EDR onboarding capability. In the past we had the onboarding, offboarding, and now it seems to be we have also an additional option with automate from connector. Can you elaborate a bit on that, how that fits in this picture?
Which onboarding feature, sorry?
Yeah, it's part of the security profiles, and one of those profiles is the EDR configuration. And the EDR configuration is a policy setting. Perhaps you can show us if you go to the Endpoint Manager tab.
I just want. Are you mentioning the onboarding or the?
Exactly this one, yeah. And then if you create policy and then fictive one, it's on that one indeed. The Windows and servers, yes. Select. And if we go through, then we have to provide the description, I believe. And if you go through, then we see an additional choice here. That's if you not configure the first one, yeah. Exactly. In the past, we had only onboard and offboard, but now we have also the auto from connector. Is that also related to the MDE or attach?
So I have to be honest, this is not something that's related to MD Security Configuration Manager.
I thought it was also a part of the streamlining the onboarding of the unmanaged endpoints, for example, and this feature might be related to that one, but no, doesn't matter. I just came across it, and yeah.
No worries, but you got me there. Well done. I can follow up with you afterwards.
Do we have any questions? There are so many on the call. Please feel free. Don't be shy. Dan is our man. So any other questions, challenges you're facing, suggestions for Dan?
If we don't have questions, tell me, and I want to show you a bit more on the how this is a Swiss Army knife and not just a configuration management new channel, basically.
Yeah, sure. If it's still shy, then please free to do so. I believe we have some time, Frans.
No problem. So what I wanted to show you is...
We have time left, so go ahead.
Great. So what I wanted to show you is basically how this is going to look like once we, in a few weeks' time, once the feature is available throughout. The security settings management experience is basically has like its own settings area in our portal, and it's really configurable, so you can fine tune the scope of the feature. And the way it works is that from the moment you turn it on, I'll show it to you. Basically, if you turn it off, you don't see anything. And once you turn it on, you get all these settings. And the first groups of settings that you see, they're here. And they basically say, or let you decide on which types of devices you would like the MDE security management flow to operate. So for instance, if you want the MDE as a management channel to work only on servers, you can select the servers here. If you want it to work only on Linux, you can select only the Linux. And the other feature that we're adding, and this is really based on customer feedback that we've been having for the past months, and also since we've been prepping for this, is that some customers are telling us, okay, but we want to be able to test this feature. And in order to test the feature, we want to be able to decide really on a per device basis, which device we want to bring into management via the MD settings management. And what we're working on right now is basically to leverage device tagging in the M365D portal, where you can tag a device specifically with the MDE management string, as you can see here. And from the moment, it doesn't matter what you set here in the settings of the portal, from the moment the device has this pilot mode enabled and it has the tag on, the device will basically immediately kick into the flow and it starts getting managed. The reason why we're doing this is also so that security teams can actually test the feature. So let's say if there's like a new group in the enterprise which would like to start leveraging this feature instead of another management channel or another third-party tool, etc. Instead of just telling them, well, it's either on or off, you can't choose. We're giving this like granularity feature capability where you tag a device and then you just see what happens. It works. Okay, great. And we actually have a flow where we explain this in our documentation and also in some of the articles that are going to come out very soon, where basically we give like step-by-step instructions how you start onboarding devices with the Swiss Army knife, basically, because we're aware that when you have suddenly servers, clients, devices starting to enroll into AAD, it can create noise. It can be also a little bit of friction. So we really have like a granular way of taking your enterprise to start using this feature. The idea being that we want the feature at the end of the day to be automatic, to be very easy to use from a security admin perspective. We just want it to be to make sure that the security admins know how to configure it, set it up correctly, and then it's hands-off keyboard, hands-off computer. Basically, everything happens in the background and devices are brought into the management channel. And so we're giving more and more capabilities. And
I see also Defender for Cloud integration.
Right, absolutely. So you're seeing this because I'm also in my test tent. This is also something we're looking to work on, to have Microsoft Defender for Cloud servers basically be able to be managed via this feature. So they'll appear in AAD, they'll be inside MEM, and the MEM policy will be reaching that device through the EDR. And the other feature that we released, and this is something that we've been working on very, very actively in the past months, it's a very big feature we received from our customers in a preview. They basically told us we want a way to co-manage a device, or basically to be able to manage the settings on a device in parallel with Configuration Manager or SCCM. And their rationale was IT teams are putting the patches or pushing patches on devices using SCCM. We're not going to tell the security teams to stop doing that because now we're using another management channel. And we don't want to use SCCM anymore. So we basically said, okay, there's like a key use case here. We identified this from our customers, strategic customers. And what we're doing is we're giving two possibilities. You can either ask, or with this toggle on, basically, you can either say SCCM only manages the device. So if a device is managed by, or a server is managed by SCCM or Configuration Manager, the MDE-attach flow will just not kick in. It will consider the device to be already managed, nothing to do here. However, if security admins want, they can request, this is basically what the toggle does, to have a mode of co-management where a device will be simultaneously managed for non-security settings, basically through SCCM, and the security teams will be able to push Defender policies to the device via the MDE management channel, or via MEM. And so that's like the compromise that we found, because we don't want just MDE security management to override the settings set by IT teams on non-security settings and cancel those. We just want the security teams to manage the Defender settings. And so this is also in our documentation really detailed, like how we can set up and asking the security admins to make sure with the IT teams, again, trying not to create any frictions between the two teams, but basically tell them when you set your policies, whether it's in SCCM or in Microsoft Endpoint Manager or whichever way you do it, make sure that the IT teams are limited to the non-security settings, and the security teams are limited by default and by architecture. It's like by design, it's this way, are limited only to the security settings. And that way we have the solution for this scenario, basically.
Yeah, actually what you're explaining is that you are facilitating and also in a coexistence scenario where you can use both, and then based on your role in your organization, you can configure either the IT admin or the secure SecOps perspective. So it's flexibility all over the place, I would say. It's, yeah. I'm getting excited about this, Dan. It's really great to have so many new possibilities and new use cases with this MDE-attach, and many thanks for showing us these great insights. Also respecting the time, I believe we can still continue for another hour discussing this great topic, but we have to respect for our time to our audience. So again, many thanks for your clear explanation, Dan. And it was a pleasure to have you. And with that, I'm handing it over to Frans to wrap it up.
Yes, then also thank you from my side for this nice overview of the security management in MDE. Our next live Ask Us Anything will be on May the 17th. Jan Bakker will join us to discuss a nice topic. What topic? We don't know that yet either. So, but in the coming days, we will finalize that with him and announce that online. Do we see each other then? For now, I want to thank you for watching and listening. See you next month in a new version of Live Ask Us Anything. Until then, bye.